Discovering Alabama is a production of the Alabama Museum of Natural History.
Home in Alabama looks different to different creatures. Our state's beauty is a testament to nature's wonder and mystery.
Here in the bright light of day, it's a joy to gaze upon the splendor of an Alabama forest. Yet this sunlit beauty is closely integrated with another unseen world of nature, a realm of wonder that only appears under the revealing cover of darkness.
At dusk, as the sun completes its day, they emerge. Bats, thousands and thousands and thousands of bats. They fill a summer's evening sky. These much maligned mammals are all too often associated with Halloween and horror movies. But the truth can be much more dramatic than the myth. And the truth is, these marvelous creatures are important players in the natural systems we ourselves depend on.
This is our vampire.
They are important to the world we inhabit today. They are important to the world tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Doug Phillips. Join me as we journey into the world of bats. We'll discover that these creatures of the night may not be brightly illuminated, but they are enlightening.
This program is about a land unknown to many people. A land that in many ways has maintained its native natural wonders. A place of bountiful backcountry, forests, streams, and wildlife more diverse than can be found in much of the inhabited world. Come along with me as we explore the wild wonders of this land. Come along as we discover Alabama.
Welcome to Discovering Alabama, and welcome to an Alabama forest. Our state is rich in forest communities, and like any community, the forest has its own infrastructure.
The infrastructure of the forest is a natural infrastructure. The woodland cover helps hold and enrich the forest soils. The healthy soils filter waters to replenish the forest streams. The streams deliver their living waters to nurture the critters of the forest. Thus, the many facets of the forest function together to represent what today is often called ecological infrastructure. Ecological infrastructure is a term popularized some years ago to proclaim the economic worth of nature's role in providing for such human needs as clean air and clean water, in providing ecological services that have economic value for people. But this "what can nature do for me" approach is not embraced by everyone. Many would say that trying to place monetary value on nature belies our obligation to preserve the natural world, first and foremost because it is the right thing to do. After all, the intricate infrastructure of an Alabama forest did not develop to support human economic gain. It developed to support its own community of life.
The great diversity of an Alabama forest's natural infrastructure provides for a great diversity of life. We're all familiar with the birds, the deer, the big critters that call the forest home. But beneath the leaves, in the hollows of trees, under the rocks, there are many more critters that we don't readily see.
In the forest community, all things big and small have their parts to play. A simple snail recycles. A beautiful butterfly pollinates. The smallest of creatures can have a huge impact, and this is true even when those creatures conduct their activities under cloak of darkness.
Yes, bats are creatures of the night, but they are also creatures of the forest. They are an important part of forest communities all across Alabama.
As many as 16 different species of bats have been identified in Alabama, and they can be found in every corner of our state. We tend to think of them as cave dwellers, and certainly there are more species in the cave-rich northern part of the state. But bats are at home wherever there is an Alabama forest.
On one warm August night, bat researchers converged in Alabama's Bankhead National Forest for the Bat Blitz. This annual event focuses intense scrutiny on specific areas crucial to bat diversity.
It was mostly hands-on experience. Your team leader shows you and demonstrates and works with you until you feel comfortable in handling them.
The Southeastern Bat Diversity Network actually has a coordinator, and one of the tasks that she's actively working on right now is taking information from things like blitzes and the state wildlife action plans that they have and kind of culminating all those into master documents that are easy to understand, that get straight to the point and aren't vague, so that these upper administrators can easily, within 5 minutes, read through this document and get some ideas of what it is that we're doing, why what we're doing is important, and how what we're doing can affect their decisions.
We got like 56.
What kind of,
Hey. Easy there, big fella. He's, making a record. During the Bat Blitz, we were doing everything that we could think of to try to survey all of the bats of all kinds, of all species within the forest. This allows intense survey on an area that would take me or the local Forest Service biologist years to survey at the intensity and cover the places that we were able to cover in just a few nights.
I catch a lot of
The beauty of this thing is it is a partnership. We've got over 100 partners, 31 different colleges and universities participating with either their professors or their students. Over $275,000 worth of donated in-kind service from our partners.
I'm going to have to pull it a little bit.
Pull the rope toward the
How's that?
In surveying bats in this forest, we'll do it primarily in two ways. For the forest bats, those are bats that do not typically enter caves, we'll actually set up nets in the forest, fine nets called mist nets that are so fine that you really can't see them very well, nor can the bats.
The first thing we do, we take a bat out of the net and we see what species it is. Then we determine the sex, try and determine whether it's an adult or a juvenile. One of the measurements we take is the forearm length. That gives us some information about it, and also that's specific to certain species of bats. We weigh the bat to get its mass, and then we'll make notes on things like parasites or whether the bat's injured or healthy. This type of information then gives us like life history type information about these animals.
Now for the cave bats, we're going to survey them by setting up traps in front of the cave, another kind of trap. It's called a heart trap. A heart trap is really neat. Most of them, they're different sizes of course, are two series of monofilament fishing line set in two planes. The line is run vertically, and there are two planes, vertical planes, a monofilament fishing line. The bats come in and they detect the first plane of fishing line, turn sideways, fly through the first plane, and then they level out again. But before they can detect the second plane, they get hung in between the two sets of fishing lines, and they are funneled, they drop right into the bat bag.
Flash this now.
Flash away from the cave, Billy.
Yeah, I'm flashing that way.
You guys see the size of those ears?
You can get right there, just left it, leave me in that light.
Yeah, and then you'll just have to replace the thing.
Usually they don't get hung in wood. I think you got hung because of
A bat's flight structures are essentially skin stretched over elongated fingers. This is his upper arm, the equivalent of our upper arm. This is his forearm. That's his thumb. And then these others are fingers, and the little knots in them that you see are knuckles. And I'm checking to see if those knuckles are fused yet. If it's a young bat, they will not be fused, and I can see that. But this bat, it is fused, and he is an adult. Why not?
That's good. Hold tight.
This guy seems to prefer ridges in the bankhead. If we trap in the creeks in the bankhead, we'll catch a few, but not many. But when you get up on the ridges, you start nailing these guys.
The surge of enthusiasts all in one place provides vast amounts of information. And what is this information telling us?
The actual raw data is probably most important to the Bankhead. And the folks here and the Department of Natural Resources, they're going to take that data, and then using that data, they're going to be able to make better management decisions about what animals do we have where, what do we need to do to improve habitats.
And the big thing for us is we're interested in, are there endangered species and rare species there, because that'll modify the way we manage the landscape. So that's the value to us.
Like the Forest Service, one of the things that we're interested here in is to look at the relationships between the bats and the habitats that they occupy. And by using the knowledge that was gathered in the bat blitz and previous bat blitzes, along with ecological associations that we've determined in other studies, we can come up with management plans that will enhance the habitat for those that need the old growth forest or more open sorts of forests as well.
Sometimes it is a difficult mental jump for some people, or they can to abstract from how is it collecting this snail or this snake or this bat or whatever species it is, or a bald eagle for that matter, collecting this data and actually how's it going to help me? And I always tell people that you can't manage natural resources unless you know what you have and where it is and how it's doing. And that's not just the big glamorous stuff. That's not just the bald eagles and the bears and the deer. It also involves the plants that are around and about. It involves all the funguses and the snails and right on up through turtles and salamanders and bats. And all of it is important. All of it has a place in the grand scheme of things. Until we can manage that, we've got to know what's there and how it's doing.
This is a female.
Like every other creature in the forest, indeed like every other creature on the planet, the bat depends on viable habitat. Learning about the health of the bat tells us something about the health of our world.
We are trying to figure out how the system is doing, because a healthy system is where it's so important to individual people. These natural systems will clean your water. They clean your air. They provide a lot of enjoyment, recreational enjoyment, walking through them, of people enjoying just wildlife viewing. But the total system and the way the earth works together is the most important thing.
We all depend on nature, and we depend on everything in the ecosystem, and when we take that away, it's going to become a big problem, and some of us realize that now, and some of us will realize that later.
In preserving habitat for the bat, we're saving many wondrous places for nature and for ourselves and for future generations.
Tell you all about who she's brought with her today. If you want her, it's her birthday for her. Good afternoon. Well, it's great to be here. I used to live in Birmingham, so it's great to come back. My name is Vicki Smith, and down in Eufaula, Alabama, I'm known as the Bat Lady. I brought 3 species of bats for you to meet today. Come up. Take a long line right across here, pop up on the end there. All right. And this is the size of the smallest bat in the world. This is a bumblebee bat from Thailand. Go ahead and open it, hold it up so everybody can see how tiny he is. He's an insect-eating bat, and he weighs less than a dime. With his wings folded up, he's about the size of your thumb. Now, would the next 2 open their bats? These 2 bats are bats that you typically see here flying around in Alabama. You have a Mexican...
Having the addition of live bats in my programs was just wonderful. And I think that it's important for people to get an opportunity to learn about these animals that people just don't understand. There's so many myths that surround them. And especially for children, we want them not to pick them up, but they're curious, so through my programs they get an up-close, safe look at them. Elvis's his bat house was knocked down and he broke his hips, so he can't be released. Come here. Sparky was hit by fireworks about 3 years ago, and unfortunately his burns were so bad he lost a wing.
And I had to pick the big guy to do it. I can barely hold it open. These are all
bats. We don't give much thought to bats as we enjoy the forest in the light of day. But they're here, all around us, waiting, biding time until it is their time.
Dusk. The end of our day is but the beginning for bats. The largest emergence of bats east of the Mississippi happens in Alabama at Sodder Cave. Up to 1.5 million can enter the forest on a summer's night.
We decided to come out to the cave tonight to see the emergence of the bats. We've never witnessed a bat phenomenon like this.
Bats are beginning to get the respect they deserve. And a good part of their newfound esteem stems from the fact that the fossil record shows bats have been an important part of the Alabama landscape for a long, long time.
So this is a reproduction, a cast of one of the earliest known bats. It's Icaro-Nycteris. It's a 52.5 million year old bat. And what you can see looking at that skeleton is it's clearly already a bat. Compared to modern bat skeletons, it's virtually identical. The earliest bats we have are 52.5 million years old, and that's radiometric dating of the actual fossils. And then we also have molecular data that also indicate that bats branched off from other insectivores a little over 52 million years ago. Bats have done so well because they very early started exploiting this huge resource, and there really isn't anything else that's a nocturnal insect predator on the wing like that. They've got that niche completely sewn up.
Bats remain the only truly flying mammal, and that's just one of the many fascinating aspects of bat biology.
Feet are actually on backward. And it's not just their feet. The rotation actually begins at their hip, and the upper leg begins to turn till the knees are pointed out, and then the lower legs rotate until the feet are on backward. But that way it allows them to hang with their belly against a tree or a cave wall, and they let go with their toes and they begin to flap their wings, and off they go. And also by being high up, they're out of the reach of a lot of predators. So hanging upside down has several advantages for them.
Now we think about bats as being flying mice. They're actually not very closely related to mice. Bats have a lifespan that may exceed 30 years. They have 1 baby per year. They occur everywhere. Bats have the ability to look at their environment with echolocation. Some bats actually go looking for food in groups. So a cluster of bats may be searching for insects. The sound that the bat sends out is one that we can't hear, but it would be similar in intensity to us standing next to a train whose whistle was blowing. So it's announcing the presence of those bats to all the other bats in the area.
The acoustic monitoring is a way that we record electronically and can display graphically the calls of bats. Volume. Oh, there's a bat. Did you hear it? These type of calls we found are fairly good signatures for certain species of bats, so we can use them to not only get, relative levels of activity in an area, but also a species list.
Bats' unique features have fostered myths and misconceptions.
There is this misconception that they all suck blood. Some bats do, the vampire bats in South America, not in the Southeast, but they think of them as associate bats with vampires and Dracula, and they think all bats are that way.
I guess one of the most common ones is that bats carry rabies and will attack you when you go outside. Most bats that have what we used to think was rabies is a Rio Bravo style virus. It's not even contagious to humans.
There's a lot of misconceptions about bats, a lot of things that are just plain wrong. Bats, for instance, bats are not blind. You've heard the expression, blind as a bat. Most bats can see very well.
Blind as a bat? Just one more of the myths being dispelled as scientists seek clues to bat behavior. And one of the best places to uncover those clues is here in Alabama.
Here in Alabama, we have a lot that live in woods. We have them that live in caves. They'll live in people's attics. They live in trees. They live under the bark of trees. So it's quite varied where some of them live. Some of them are colony bats. Some of them are solitary. We're working with different species for different things. We've been studying their echolocation for helping blind people. We're using the vampire bat saliva for an anticoagulant to help stroke patients. We are studying their reproductive systems. Some actually harbor the sperm until spring, and then they will become impregnated after they've mated in the fall. So we're hoping to find some answers to human fertility problems.
People need to understand that bats are helpful, and they are beneficial in the sense that they remove unwanted insect pests. And those pests are not only pests that annoy humans, but they're pests that can have a huge economic impact on our crops.
There's a lot we can learn from bats, and the more we learn, the more we appreciate them.
Alabama, this one is a southeastern Myotis.
Yes, bats have certain value for us. For example, bats may be nature's pesticide, gobbling up insects and leaving behind a nitrogen-rich fertilizer. But let's face it, bats are not conducting their nightly business for our benefit. Long before humans began to place value on the services provided by natural infrastructure, bats were part of a community where wooded wildlands freshen the waters, where creeks and streams deliver living waters across the landscape, and where myriad creatures, large and small, are linked together in sustaining natural habitats, in sustaining our world.
They inhabit the night, and yet they are such an integral part of the beauty that surrounds us here in the light of day.
There you go, stretch that out. Now that's a pretty big bat. Okay, this is a dog-faced bat, not native to America, of course, since we don't have any fruit bats here. Let's see what you got.
Discovering Alabama is a production of the Alabama Museum of Natural History, the University of Alabama. This program is supported by grants from the Solon and Martha Dixon Foundation, the Alabama Wildlife Federation, working for wildlife since 1935, the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, State Lands Division, and Alabama Power, always on.